أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على سيدنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبا القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، لا سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء. أما بعد، يقول الله في محكم كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص بما أوحينا إليك هذا القرآن. صدق الله العلي العظيم. The first of our loud salawats in honor of the greatest man to walk this earth, Al-Habib al-Mustafa Muhammad. The second in honor of the greatest lady to walk this earth, Al-Hawra al-Batulati Fatima. The third with your loudest voices for the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman. Allah. First and foremost, inshallah, on this auspicious occasion, we want to send out the blessing of the celebration for tonight to the maqam of our Imam, Imam Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman. Inshallah, tonight we'll be discussing in reference to the birth of our Imam, Imam Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman, the understanding of the concept of ghaib. Because many a times we'll come forth and we'll tell our children that we need to understand the Imam in such a manner that you know that the Imam, alayhi afdal salatu wassalam, that the Imam himself only appeared at 5 years of age. Then he went on the small ghaibah which lasted 69 years, in which people went in direct contact with him. However, he had wukala in order for you to get towards him. And we stop there. And we'll say, do something good, the Imam will see. Don't do this, it's bad, the Imam will see. So our understanding is that we are constantly waiting the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman. Now, is that what we need to understand? Is there a further detail that we need to teach our children about the concept of ghaibah? What can we learn from the Holy Quran in order for us to teach our children? Now, amongst the many things the children will ask us, and you'll find that the children will ask one of the most difficult questions that even us as adults will find very difficult to answer. But amongst these questions that arise within our mind that ourselves would not have an answer for is the ghaibah in itself, which we'll answer tonight. What's the correct understanding through the Quran? As in, is it just a waiting game for us to sit at home and wait for the Imam of our time? When such a time comes that there's too much tyranny in the earth, too much oppression, too much dhulm, that the Imam needs to come now? Or is there a deeper understanding of this concept of ghaibah, that the Imam isn't just in hiding, that the Imam is amongst us, that we go to look at it from the Holy Quran? Secondly, the question we want to answer for tonight: Imam is in ghaibah, however, is he doing anything? Or is he like you and I, waiting till Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, now you can come? How can we prove this from the Quran? Thirdly, we want to ask, is anything that we do, you and I, affecting our Imam right now? Whether it be emotionally, whether it be on his journey for his reappearance, can anything you and I do affect the Imam? And can we prove this from the Holy Quran? Then the second part of the lecture, inshallah, we'll talk about for tonight is what can we learn from the Quran about people that were awaiting a person that's in ghaibah? What can we learn from them? What to do in our daily lives in order for us to be like what the Quran taught us? How to be in the state of ghaibah. So inshallah we can bless the majlis for tonight with recitation of a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. When you go within the Holy Quran, the verse that I quoted was from chapter 12 of the Holy Quran, Surah Yusuf. Now we started by stating, the Holy Quran states we are giving you the best of stories in order for you to learn from. What can we learn from the life and the story of Yusuf alayhi afdal salatu wassalam that is intertwined with us being in ghaibah? And indeed the ghaibah of our Imam Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman, the first of which is understanding what ghaibah means. For us it just means occultation. But when we look at the Quran, it tells us otherwise. That for us ghaibah just means that the Imam is in hiding. That the Imam is in hiding. That's our concept of ghaibah. However, when you look at the Holy Quran, it references Yusuf on multiple stages being in ghaibah. When does he reference Yusuf? First of all, and this is where we begin to understand what ghaibah truly means. First of all, you find the Quran, and Allah speaks to us that Yusuf was a prophet. When Yusuf is a prophet, he has 11 other brothers, doesn't he? The first state of ghaibah that we learn from the surah of Yusuf is the fact that his own brothers did not know who he was. There's the concept of ghaibah in itself. That he was a prophet, however, it was veiled from his own brothers. Yusuf was a prophet. Yaqub knew that, but his brothers did not. They would see the prophet. They would eat with him. They would play with him. However, they did not know he was the prophet. Do you think if they knew that he was the prophet, they'd throw him in a well? Do you think that they would sell him? Do you think that they would get rid of him and return with a bloodied shirt telling their father that he's now being eaten? The concept of ghaibah that we begin to understand isn't the fact that there's a person away from us. Imam Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman doesn't mean ghaibah means he's away from us. The concept of ghaibah is that the Imam may be amongst us. The Imam could be anyone here amongst us. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not allowed us to recognize the Imam because that's the aspect of ghaibah. The aspect is that we may see him. He may be amongst us. He may be aiding us through our journey. However, we do not recognize it's the Imam. There's the understanding of ghaibah. Yusuf, you find in the castle, when he was in prison, the incident with Zulaykha, all shows us that these people did not know who Yusuf was. He was there. Now the question arises, okay, he's in ghaibah, we don't know where the Imam is. Is the Imam doing anything within these times? Or is the Imam just hiding? Is the Imam just somewhere we don't know where he is, waiting for Allah to tell him that, oh Imam, now is the time that you come and you say what's been proposed amongst the people that you will do. But we learn from the Holy Quran, on the contrary, the same surah that we discover, Surah Yusuf shows us that even though the people did not know Yusuf was a prophet, Yusuf went about his daily activities. Yusuf gave advice to the governor of his time. Yusuf took the state orders into his own hands. He took the treasury. He began to build justice. He began to answer questions, solve dreams, move the entire place where he was residing, which was Egypt, from evil, tyrannical rule towards that which was in line with what Allah wanted. Also within the Holy Quran, we know another person that was in ghaibah. However, he was working what Allah wanted him to do. He was doing Allah's commands on earth, but he was in ghaibah. Until a moment when we read in Surah Al-Kahf, when Musa alayhi salam asks Allah, oh Allah, increase me in knowledge. Now a prophet of God, and not any prophet of the 124,000. You found this was one of the 5 of the highest statures. The highest stature. The ones that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevated so much that he would say that you are now the person that has the aspect of being called Kalimullah. Imagine that status. That you are now known to be the person that speaks towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly. Now on a side note, some people will come and say that Allah doesn't have a voice. That's true. Because if you give Allah a voice, it limits him. The riwayat tells us that Allah creates a voice in which He speaks directly to Musa. And that voice was the voice of his brothers Harun. Just a quick side note, likewise in Mi'raj, when Allah spoke to our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, when Allah spoke to our Prophet directly in Mi'raj, remember, the way that Rasulullah would gain the revelation is through Jibreel. There was a moment in which Jibreel, and it's said in the Quran that there was a moment that Jibreel could not move forward. كَانَ قَابَ قَوْسَيْنِ أَوْ أَدْنَى. There was a moment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not allow Jibreel to move forward. He says, I will perish if I take another step. Rasulullah would gain that step to be closer towards the mercy of Allah, and Allah spoke to him directly. And the voice in which He created to speak towards Rasulullah was none other than the voice of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Allah. And Rasulullah would ask, he says, why do you speak to me with the voice of Ali? And Allah would reply by saying, this is the voice, when you hear it, it would make your heart at ease. This is the person that you call in every calamity, in every need. That's why I speak to you with the voice of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Now, the understanding of Surah Al-Kahf, when Musa speaks towards Allah, he says, oh Allah, increase me in knowledge. He sends him to a person that Musa didn't know existed. He was in ghayb from the people. And Allah says in the Quran, He sent him to a servant from our servants. Abdun min ibadina. One of our servants that's been in this aspect of ghayb that you do not see. But come with him. Musa, being a prophet, didn't understand what he was doing, whilst he is in this concept of ghayb that people didn't know who he was. And this person was Khudr. When Musa went with him, we know the story. We say it very repetitively. When he sunk a ship, he built a wall and he killed a boy. And he says to Musa, Musa, don't ask. You will not have patience with me to know what I'm doing. Until a moment where Musa keeps repetitively saying, why do you do this? Why do you do this? Why do you do this? He says, I'll give you the answer, but we're now going to part ways. He's trying to show him that I am actively working for Allah whilst I'm in ghayb. Musa was brought to an aspect where I begin to understand from the story of Khudr that just because a person's in ghayb doesn't mean he's not working for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I understand from the story of Musa, and likewise the story of Yusuf, that's all of a sudden we have people that are in this concept of ghayb, but they're working night and day to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have this concept that our Imams and this person that we await for, Imam Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman, is just waiting as well. We're under the impression, we teach our children that he's waiting just like you and me. That the Imam will appear at any time when Allah tells him. No, he's working for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, night and day. So much so that we have traditions that tell us, listen to this tradition, brothers and sisters. It says when the Imam would reappear, the people would recognize him and would say, by God, I recognize his face, that I've seen him. Is to allude to the understanding that Imam Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman has crossed paths with each and every one of us, but we did not know that was the Imam. We might have looked at him, we might have spoken to him, but we did not know it was the Imam Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman. So the first understanding, we understood the concept of ghayb through the Quran, Surah Yusuf. The second is that we began to understood the fact that the Imam isn't just sitting down, he's working. Now the third question we want to answer for tonight is, if the Imam is working and the Imam is amongst us, is the Imam affected by our actions? Being the Shia, of the people that call themselves the people that follow in the footsteps of Imam Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman. Does what we do affect the Imam? Does what we do emotionally have an effect on the Imam? Ajalla ta'ala farajahu al-Sharif. Going back towards Surah Yusuf, we find when Yusuf, chapter 12 of the Holy Quran, verse 77, we all know the story of Yusuf, but we haven't stopped to think. We haven't stopped to reflect. When he comes back, when his brothers come back and he puts the goblet in one of their wheat sacks and he says, you've stolen. And he brings them back. And he says, this brother of yours, Binyamin, now all of a sudden has taken this goblet. They reply by saying, if he has stolen, it's because he had a brother previously who stole before him. Who do they mean? They mean Yusuf. When he was younger, they made an issue where they blamed him unjustly for stealing something. So when they said to Yusuf, remember they didn't know it was Yusuf. They thought it was the treasurer of the time, the person that was in charge. So they said all of a sudden to Yusuf, not knowing it was their brother, that if this person has stolen, he had a brother that stole before him. The Quran says very clearly, فَأَسَرَّهَا يُوسُفُ فِي نَفْسِهِ. It says he kept it inside him. It affected him, the fact that they spoke unjustly, not only of their brother, but of him as well. The understanding now therefore is, if an imam is representing this religion, if an imam is waiting for us to be his support, to speak for him, to act for him, to be representatives for his cause, for his path, do you not think if we portray ourselves to be any less than what we want, or what the imam wants, it does not affect him? When we do something that people will come and look at us, if we do something that's wrong, if we do something that's disloyal, dishonest, act in a manner in which our tongue begins to say things which Allah will not necessarily agree upon, do you think when people begin to say that, look at these people and look how bad they are, and on top of that, these are the Shia, the followers of Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman, the followers of Ali, do you not think it will hurt the Imam of our time? And on the flip side, do you not think if that person would look at us in the outer community and see us doing that which is righteous, doing that which is honest, doing that which is honorable, acting in a way where some people will come and look forward to these people and say, look at how they follow the path of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Who are these people? And when they alluded to the fact that these are the followers of Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman, do you not think that the Imam will be pleased, that his heart will be at ease, that yes, there are people that are coming towards my cause, there are people that are advocating, are messengers for this religion in the best way possible? Which brings us to the next aspect. Now that we've understood that the Imam will be affected by us, by our actions, by how we represent the Shia, that the Imam is constantly working day and night, that the Imam will now be amongst us, it should give us an understanding that we need to act in a different way, knowing that the Imam might be on our right hand side, or the Imam might be anywhere that he can see what we're doing. When we look at the Holy Quran, we see the father of Yusuf, he himself, when they brought them the news, chapter 12 of the Holy Quran, ayah number 18, he says a particular line that we always take for granted. He said the following, he says, فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ. He says, I will be patient, but that patience will be beautiful. How can patience be beautiful? You and I, when we went for the Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman, we wait for him saying, you know what, we're going to go by our daily lives, we're going to earn money, we're going to raise our children, we're going to make sure to increase the bank balance, we need to make sure we have the latest models, whether it be phones, whether it be cars, whether it be laptops, or whatever you have, your materialistic gains. However, do we ever stop and think to ourselves that our ultimate goal on this or in this life is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah wants us to be steadfast. The one thing that we're waiting for is the reappearance of the Imam. When we're waiting, are we waiting like Yaqub waited for Yusuf? How did Yaqub wait for Yusuf? He would remember him day in, day out. He would cry over him, cry over his absence. So much so that his eyes went blind from how much he cried in anticipation and waiting for the return of his son, which was the Prophet, the Hujjah of the time. How many of us have even cried a tear for Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman? How many of us try and come together and remember him every Friday? How many of us would wake up every morning if we truly want to be with the Imam? We know we have jewels that we haven't yet treaded upon. One of these jewels is if we go towards any bookshelf in a Shia person's house, you'll find a book by the name of Mafatih al-Jinan, and you open it, you go towards Dua al-Ahad. You read that prelude before Dua al-Ahad, it would tell you that we have traditions telling us if a person would recite this 40 consecutive days in the morning, that he may be granted, even if he dies, when the Imam returns, he may be granted resurrection to fight alongside the Imam. Can you imagine? You'll say to yourselves, well, my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents may not see the return of the Imam because they've died. I may not see the return of the Imam because I may be buried. My children may not. However, they've given you jewels to say if you truly love the Imam, if you truly want to be alongside him, you'll go in search for ways in which you can assist him. You'll live your life in a way where you can advocate for this cause, be a messenger for this cause, one of which, if you want to be resurrected, to be alongside the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman. You read this for 40 mornings. How many of us have come together as youth, as elders, to say let's come together 40 mornings in a row and recite this dua? Many of us will say no. We're not capable to wake up for Salatul Subh in the morning, let alone read the dua. That's what makes the difference between the people that the Imam is waiting for and the people that are waiting for the Imam. Big difference. Be amongst those people. Many of us will come forward and say, well, we'd love to see the Imam of our time. Many people in history have likewise tried their best to so-called become religious in order for them to see the Imam, but the Imam doesn't work like that. One of these people, and I mention a story before I end, is a documented story. There are other stories that are not documented. A documented story by a person living in Iran at the time. This person's name is Ali Rajab. You can look him up, look up his story, what happened in his life. Like you and I, he was one of the people that wanted to meet, greet, speak with the Imam, sit with the Imam. This person used to sew garments for the ulama at the time in Iran. You know what the garments the ulama would wear while they sit on the pulpits? He would sew it for them. One day he said to himself, like you and I, we want to meet the Imam. All of a sudden you have this connection that you want to see the Imam, you want to meet him. You go forth in every avenue in order for you to get closer towards Allah, get closer towards the Imam of your time. Likewise, this sparked a light within this person by the name of Ali Rajab. What does he do? Just to put it into context, what we can do what he did, to show you how truly we can connect with the Imam. Because this story will allude you to the fact that it's not aspect of just worship, but what type of worship that you do. This person said, I'm going to sell my business. I'm going to sell my livelihood. I want to meet the Imam by worshipping. I'm going to worship day and night. I'm going to fast every day. The nights I'll be in worship. The days I'll be fasting and I'll be reciting the Quran until Allah deems me worthy that I can see the Imam of my time one day. So he left his work behind. He built himself a mihrab and he's worshipping, he's fasting, worshipping, reading Quran. Because many of us will understand the fact that this is how we get closer towards Allah. And then we remember the people that fought Imam Ali in the third civil war were the people that used to pray Salatul Subh with the wudu of Maghrib and Isha on the previous day. All night in Salat, but they went and fought Amir al-Mu'mineen. Why? Because they didn't comprehend the worship that they were worshipping, what it meant, contemplate over it, understand the correct knowledge, gain the correct source. So this Ali Rajab was praying, was fasting, was reading Quran, and he mentions this story. He says, one day I was in the market. And subhanAllah, as we know, we've all been to the Arab markets. You find one gold shop, you'll find the whole street selling gold. You find one Dahinat Abu Ali, the whole street saying where the original Abu Ali's Dahina. Every single person, side by side. So he says, I went to a particular market where they used to sell pots. So I saw, as I'm in this market, there was a woman elderly. This elderly woman, he says, I began to see her walking into one shop, leaving, walking to the next shop, leaving, walking to the next shop. He says, I get closer towards her just to see what's going on. So he says, I hear her speaking to the people. And she was saying to the people that I have this pot, I want you to buy it off me for 6 tuman. At the time, she says, I don't want to sell it. I'm in need of this pot, but I need medicine. I have no money, I want to sell this pot for 6 tuman so I can afford my medicine. Every shop she would go into, they would say, we'll not give you more than 5 tuman. She would go into one shop, the next. She needs 6 for her medicine. She said, until I saw her enter an elderly man that had the signs of a believer on him. I paid close attention. He says, I saw her come to this man. And she asked him the same thing she asked everyone else. She said, can you buy this off me for 6 tuman because I want to sell it to buy my medicine. Look at the difference. So this man says, I'll happily purchase it off you, but I won't purchase it until I weigh it. I want to weigh it to see how much it's worth. It might be less, it might be more. So he takes the pot, goes inside, comes back out, and he says, oh lady, I'm happy to purchase it off you, but I can't give you 6 tuman. She says, how much can you give me? He says, I'll give you 21 tuman. The lady's thinking to herself, I've been to every single shop in the district. No one has offered me more than 5. You're offering me 21. And as in, you're joking. Do you think it's a mockery? You know, an elderly lady coming to you and you're like, oh, I want to give you 6, I'll give you 21. He says, no, that's my offer. He says, because this is a very valuable pot. I can sell it for 22 tuman. So I've bought it off you for 21 if you sell it. And I'll sell it for 22, I'll have this 1 tuman as a profit, that's enough and sufficed for me. That I've made a profit. So the lady's thinking to herself, this is a bargain. Give me the tumans and she's off. Now, this is where the concept begins to use your mind, use your thoughts. This is where the concept should hit home. For each and every one of us. Ali Rajab is the person who is watching this unfold. This is a person that left his job behind. This is a person that is worshipping day and night. This is a person that is constantly in a state of siyam. A person that's constantly reading Quran, sees this unfold. He runs towards the person. Remember, this person and Ali Rajab never met. All of a sudden, Ali Rajab is telling him, he says, oh man, in what religion is this? The lady wants 6 tumans. If it's worth 22, give her the 5. Give her the 6. Give her 7. You've made a great profit. Why are you selling it? Why are you buying it for 21? Now look at the reply of this man. He says, أَبِهَذِهِ النَّفْسِ الْخَسِيسَةِ تُرِيدُ أَن تَرَى إِمَامَ زَمَانِكَ. He says, with this type of soul and attitude, you want to see the Imam of your time? So Ali Rajab is thinking, how on earth does this person even know that I want to meet the Imam? And he held it within himself that yes, this isn't right. The justice would be to give the woman her due rights. So Ali Rajab is thinking to himself, I'm going to stay with this man. I want to learn more from this person to apply to my life. So he says, I stayed close to this elderly man. I'd visit him regularly. It says, until a moment in my life where I was at the shop with this man. He says, there was a gentleman that entered. When he entered, all my limbs suddenly did not work. He says, I was sitting, I was watching, I can hear, but I couldn't get up from my seat whilst this man entered. He says, he went inside, spoke to the shopkeeper and left. This is the message we need to take home tonight. The shopkeeper comes outside, comes towards Ali Rajab. He says, oh Ali Rajab, how are you? He says, all of a sudden I got my strength back. Ali Rajab asked the shopkeeper, says, oh shopkeeper, who was that? All of a sudden when he entered, I've lost all my strength within my body. I couldn't move, couldn't get up, couldn't speak. I could only see and hear. He says, that's the person that you're in search for. He says, tell me how to access him. How can I go to him? I need to talk to him. I want to meet him. He says, no, he came to deliver a message for you and to his followers, which is everyone sitting here tonight. What's the message? What do we need to take home? How do we gain closeness towards the Imam? How can we meet the Imam? The message is as follows. He says, tell Ali Raja and let him tell my followers that if you seek us, don't come looking for us. He says, do what we want you to do. He says, by Allah, we will come and visit you. Stay steadfast. Allah has given you a mission. Allah has given you footsteps to follow. He says, stay away from this place. Stay away from these sins. Follow this path. Follow this person. Follow these footsteps. He says, if you follow these footsteps, he says, you don't need to come to us. If you follow these footsteps, we will come to you. Who says this? Imam Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So the understanding now is all of a sudden, it's not just waiting game, is it? It's not the fact that I'm going to go home, I'm going to go back to my worldly ways and just wait for Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman to come. When he comes, then I'll see, maybe I can live my business, maybe I can't live my business. The aspect now is that we have to be in a state where we have to perfect our actions. And by perfecting our actions, by following in the footsteps of Ahlul Bayt, by following in the footsteps that the Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman has laid in front of us, we will gain closeness towards the Imam. There was two youth speaking. Amir al-Mu'mineen walks past, he hears them. What does he hear? One of them was saying, ولادة. The other one would say, ولادة. He says, Amir al-Mu'mineen, you are the person, the peak of eloquence. You are the door to Rasulullah's Medina of ilm. Can you teach us? Is it 3? Is it 4? Is it 5? Is it 7? How many syllables? Is ولادة. Amir al-Mu'mineen replies with the following, because oftentimes we look ourselves and we think to ourselves, when we want to learn about the Imam by seeing how tall the Imam is, how dark his features are, is the mole on the right or the left cheek when the Imam appears, I need to recognize him. These things don't matter as much as what you need to do in your life. Imam sees these two people. These two people are discussing which is longer, which is the correct one. Is it 5? Is it 7? Is it 3? Imam says, أنتم إلى إعراب أعمالكم أحوج من إعراب أقوالكم. Meaning, perfecting the grammar of your actions is something that you are in a greater need than correcting your grammar of language. He says, look at your actions, perfect them. You do one act and one day, and that is an act which displeases Allah. Remove it from your life so you can become perfect. One day at a time. You're getting closer towards being a companion of the Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. Being of the people that Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman can see them, see their actions and say to themselves, these are the representatives of me. These are the people that I've been waiting for. And indeed, when we die, which is one thing that no matter what religion, what race you are, you know for a fact that we will die. But when we die, we know that we've been steadfast on these footsteps that have been laid before us. Inshallah, I leave you with this, brothers and sisters. I leave you to contemplate of your daily lives. How much of our lives is spent thinking of the Imam? How much of our lives has been spent remembering? When we throw that charity, do we remember to throw a charity for our Imam? When we go about our actions on a Friday morning, in any morning, do we remember our Imam? Do we pray 2 rak'at and send it towards him? how much of our lives incorporate Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman in them. Because many of the time, when Muharram would come, when Ramadan would come, when any month would come, when we remember, let's say Imam Hussein for example, everything in our lives revolves all of a sudden towards Imam al-Hussein. But we forget that the Hussein of our time is Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. Will we be of those companions that fight alongside him? Or will we be of those companions that fight against him? Because on the 10th of Muharram we'll find both sides were Muslim. Both sides said La ilaha illallah. Both sides would say that you, Hussein, your grandfather is the Rasul of Allah. But you'll find Muslims fought them. Only a minority stood steadfast on the correct path. Inshallah, Allah grants us to be amongst those that are steadfast on His path, inshallah. And I leave you with this, inshallah, we can end tonight by sending a blessed salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad towards Imam Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman.